Paul Ekman traveled to a remote, visually isolated tribe in Papua New Guinea that had never seen photographs, film, or Western faces, and showed them pictures of facial expressions. The tribe's people correctly matched Western facial expressions to emotional scenarios with striking accuracy, powerful evidence. Ekman argued that certain core facial expressions are biologically universal rather than culturally learned. Decades later, this claim remains one of psychology's most influential and most seriously contested. Paul Ekman's research across dozens of literate and preliterate cultures, most famously the visually isolated Fore tribe of Papua New Guinea, found that people across dramatically different cultures could reliably match photographs of 6 specific facial expressions: anger, fear, disgust, surprise, sadness, and happiness, to the correct corresponding emotional scenario, at rates far exceeding chance. Ekman argued this cross-cultural consistency, found even in a population with essentially no exposure to Western media or faces, provided strong evidence that these 6 expressions represent biologically evolved, universal signals rather than expressions learned through cultural exposure. Ekman and Wallace Friesen developed the Facial Action Coding System, or FACS, providing a comprehensive, objective, anatomically grounded taxonomy of every distinct facial muscle movement, called an action unit, that the human face can produce, along with standardized methods for reliably identifying and combining these action units to describe any facial expression with precision. FACS transformed emotion research from relying on subjective impressions of what an expression seemed to convey into a rigorous, replicable measurement system, and remains the gold standard tool for facial expression research and computer-based automated emotion detection systems today. A central methodological critique, led by researchers including Lisa Feldman Barrett, argues that Ekman's classic studies used forced-choice response formats, requiring participants to select from a short list of provided emotion labels rather than freely describing what they perceived, which artificially inflates apparent agreement by constraining the possible responses. When researchers use free labeling methods instead, cross-cultural agreement on specific emotion categories drops substantially, suggesting the original studies may have measured participants' ability to correctly guess from limited options rather than genuine universal, automatic emotion recognition. Lisa Feldman Barrett's theory of constructed emotion, a major alternative to Ekman's classical view, proposes that emotions are not discrete, universal, biologically hardwired programs each with one fixed facial signature, but are instead actively constructed by the brain in each specific instance, drawing on prior conceptual knowledge, immediate context, and interoceptive bodily signals. On this view, facial expressions do not have one fixed, universal meaning. The same scowling expression might be perceived as anger, concentration, or determination depending heavily on the surrounding context, undermining the claim that discrete emotion categories map onto fixed, universally recognized facial signatures. Careful meta-analyses combining decades of subsequent research, including studies using both forced choice and free labeling methods, find that cross-cultural recognition of facial expressions is real and above chance, but is more modest, variable across specific emotions and cultures, and more context-dependent than Ekman's original strong universality claim suggested. Basic expressions like happiness and disgust show more consistent cross-cultural recognition than more nuanced expressions like fear and surprise, which are more easily confused with each other across cultural groups. Rather than treating universalist and constructionist theories as a winner-take-all debate, much contemporary emotion research increasingly integrates insights from both perspectives, recognizing that some component processes of emotion, including certain basic physiological and expressive patterns, may have genuine evolved, cross-culturally consistent elements, while the specific conceptual categories, contextual interpretation, and cultural display rules governing when and how emotions are expressed and perceived are substantially shaped by learning and culture. This integrative view reflects the field's maturation beyond its earlier, more polarized theoretical positions. Ekman's research remains foundational to the scientific study of emotion, even as decades of subsequent research have refined, qualified, and in places directly challenged his strongest universalist claims. The ongoing debate between universal and constructed views of emotion exemplifies psychology at its best. Foundational claims tested, refined, and ultimately integrated into a richer, more accurate understanding.